If you made it this far, you probably didn't take the easy road. Neither did I. I'm Rob LeBlanc. Come on in.
Ink on an ancient page, names carved deeper than graves, blood in a hidden shield, binding the breathing is saved. You hear the ticking stop, but something else keeps time. Hands that you never see turn every shadow into a sign. So take a stand at the break of your last breath. So take a read in the fine print of your death. Who'll hold you when the light slips off your skin? So take a decide which side you're waking in.
Imagine standing in your bathroom right now, just staring into the mirror.
Right. It's a normal morning.
Exactly. You're brushing your teeth, getting ready for the day. You blink, but your reflection, well, it doesn't blink with you.
Oh, that is just unsettling.
It waits a half second and then it blinks. Just this tiny, completely impossible delay. What do you actually do in that moment?
I mean, that's the ultimate question, isn't it?
Right. Like, do you scream? Do you call a physicist? Do you call a priest? Or do you just kind of close your eyes and tell yourself you're overtired?
I think most people choose denial, honestly, because, acknowledging that the fundamental laws of reality have just fractured, it's just too much for the human brain to process.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Because the alternative is admitting that the contract we have with the universe, like cause and effect, the speed of light,
Gravity, all of it.
yeah, all of it is completely void. And once that contract is void, you are just in free fall.
Well, today we are stepping right into that free fall. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. We're pulling up a chair for you to join this conversation because, man, we are unpacking a really wild scenario today.
We really are. It's a deep dive into how the mundane, everyday world can slowly, just methodically, turn into an absolute nightmare.
Exactly. We are examining the opening sequences of Soul Takers, Book 1, First Contact, The Awakening. And, what makes this specific material so incredibly rich is the history behind it.
Oh, the background on this is fascinating.
Right. The creator, Rob LeBlanc, he didn't just, throw this narrative together over a weekend. He spent over 20 years constructing this universe.
2 decades of incubation.
Yeah.
That's a massive amount of time to spend in one world.
And he was heavily collaborating and developing it thanks to his brother Ron. And because of that 20-year gestation period, there is just no wasted space in this writing.
None at all. Every psychological trigger, every broken law of physics we're about to discuss, it's all been honed to a razor's edge.
It really is the difference between, a cheap jump scare and true existential dread.
Yeah, because a 20-year development cycle means the creator has had time to map out the deepest implications of the universe. This isn't just about a monster hiding in the dark.
No, it's way deeper than that.
It is a meticulous exploration of unresolved history. It's about how the past is never actually dead, and how massive unseen debts will eventually demand to be paid.
Even if you didn't personally sign the contract. Which is the scariest part. We're looking at a masterclass in cosmic inevitability here.
Absolutely. And the focal point of all this inevitability is our protagonist, Kailen.
Right. And just a quick piece of context for you listening at home. Kailen is such a profoundly realized character that he actually forms the bridge into LeBlanc's newest work, The Nothing.
Which is such a brilliant transition.
It is. The events we are diving into today are the catalyst, the exact origin point of the psychological and physical void that eventually swallows him in The Nothing.
So this is where it all begins for him.
Exactly. So our mission today is to tear down the mechanics of this terror. We're going to explore the biology of inherited trauma, the evolutionary psychology of social isolation, and the actual physics of a reality that is slowly dropping its frame rate.
We're going to see what happens when the universe decides to finally stop ignoring you.
I love that phrasing. So let's start at the absolute foundation of the conflict, the origin point.
Right, which happens before Kailen is even a concept. before he's even born.
Yeah, the narrative establishes that someone deep in Kailen's bloodline made a bargain, but it's not presented as a formal demonic crossroads deal with a guy in a suit.
No, it's way more abstract than that. It's described as a moment where desperation outweighed caution, where the future no longer carried enough weight to matter.
Okay, let's unpack this because that phrase is a psychological heavy hitter. Mortgaging the future because the present is entirely unsurvivable.
It's a very human moment of weakness.
Exactly. And I want to frame this outside of the supernatural for a second, just for you listening. Think of it like inheriting a massive hidden financial liability, but on a cosmic scale.
That's a great way to look at it.
Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that your great-grandfather secretly took out a massive, completely unregulated loan to save his family from starvation, and he put your unborn life down as the collateral.
Wow. Yeah, you didn't ask for it. You didn't spend the money.
Right, but the collectors are standing on your porch anyway, and they do not care about fairness. They only care about the ledger.
I want to push that analogy even further, actually, into the realm of human biology. What we're really talking about here is the literalization of epigenetics.
Oh, right, epigenetics. Tell us more about how that applies here.
Well, in the real world, psychologists and geneticists study how extreme, trauma-like surviving a famine or a war actually alters the chemical markers on a person's DNA.
So it physically changes them.
Exactly. Those markers dictate how genes are expressed, and those altered markers are passed down to their children and then their children's children.
That is wild to think about.
Just look at the famous studies on the descendants of the Dutch hunger winter during World War II.
And I've heard of that. The grandchildren had health issues, right?
Yeah, the grandchildren of the survivors carry biological markers for metabolic vulnerability and heightened stress responses, even though those grandchildren never experienced a day of starvation in their lives.
So they basically inherited a biological debt.
Precisely. The trauma of the ancestor literally reaches across time to tax the physiology of the descendant.
But wait, if we apply that biological framework to this specific narrative, I struggle a bit with the mechanics of the entity involved.
How so?
Well, the text says something heard it, something accepted it. It doesn't name a demon, it just says something.
Which is a very deliberate choice by LeBlanc.
Right, but if this entity is so powerful, why wait generations? If it bought the debt back then, why not collect it from the person who made the deal or, their immediate child? Why let it marinate all the way down to Kailen?
What's fascinating here is the psychological terror of that exact delay. It comes back to the deliberate ambiguity of the word something.
Right, because human beings are categorizers. We like to put things in boxes.
Exactly. We have defense mechanisms for named threats. If I tell you a wolf is at the door, you know to go get a weapon.
Yeah, or if I tell you a specific mythological demon is coming, human history has basically given you a cultural playbook. Holy water, banishing ritual, salt circles, whatever.
But an undefined something offers no friction at all. It offers nothing to push against.
Yeah.
You can't prepare for something.
That makes a lot of sense.
And to answer your question about why it waits, the narrative states very clearly, time does not threaten them. It serves them.
Man, that line gives me chills. Because time is usually our ultimate predator,
Oh, absolutely. We age, our cells decay, we've run out of time to achieve our goals.
Right. We are constantly in a defensive crouch against the clock.
Precisely. But for an entity outside of our physical framework, time is not a decaying force. It is an incubator.
An incubator. Wow.
That allows the interest on the ancestral debt to compound. From a supernatural perspective, perhaps a soul seasoned by generations of ambient inherited dread is simply more valuable to it.
So it's basically letting the investment grow.
Yeah, the entity uses time as a courier to deliver a much heavier, much more refined payload by the time it finally reaches Kailen. It is a terrifying inversion of how we perceive the universe.
I see where you're going with that, and it's incredibly dark, but I think the terror is even more, administrative than that.
Administrative, how do you mean?
Well, the entity doesn't actually care about Kailen as a person. Kailen is just the maturity date of a bond.
Ah, right. He's just a number on a spreadsheet.
Exactly, and that forces us to look at the collateral damage, Kailen's actual day-to-day existence. Because before the supernatural elements actively kick in, we really have to examine the 35 years Kailen spends paying the ambient interest on this debt.
Yeah, we zoom in from this massive, sweeping, multi-generational timescale down to a very specific, painfully isolated existence.
Kailen is 35 years old, And his defining characteristic is this profound invisibility.
He describes feeling a low pressure beneath everything, a sensation of being placed just out of alignment with everything around him.
Let's talk about the mechanics of that isolation, because it is agonizingly specific. It's not that people are actively bullying him, right?
No, not at all.
If people hate you, they are at least acknowledging your existence. You're on the radar. But Kailen's situation is a complete lack of friction with humanity.
It's like he's not even there.
Yeah, like cashiers look past him to the next customer before he even takes his receipt. His own coworkers forget conversations they had with him just a few hours prior.
And it happens on the street, too.
Right. When he walks down a busy city sidewalk, pedestrians naturally, just unconsciously, shift their paths to avoid bumping into him, but they never make eye contact. He is treated as part of the background geometry, like he's a lamppost.
Or a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
And we really need to examine why that is so utterly devastating to the human mind.
Because it would absolutely break a person.
Let's look at the evolutionary psychology of social interaction.
Yeah.
Human beings are apex predators, not because we have sharp claws, but because we are hypersocial pack animals.
We survive by sticking together.
Exactly. For our ancient ancestors on the savannah, ostracization from the tribe meant literal immediate death. You simply cannot survive alone in that environment.
So our brains are wired to fear isolation.
Therefore, our brains evolved to equate social inclusion with physical survival. Modern neuroimaging actually shows that the pain of social rejection activates the exact same neural pathways, the anterior cingulate cortex, as physical injury.
Wait, really? So being ignored physically hurts?
Yes, exactly. When you are starved of social reflection, when your existence is not validated by the gaze of another human being, your ego doesn't just bruise, it begins to structurally dissolve.
Oh man, there is a devastating line in the book that encapsulates this perfectly. It says, if you move through the world long enough without leaving an impression, the world eventually stops trying to notice you at all.
It's heartbreaking.
And eventually, Kailen just stopped correcting people. He stopped trying to force his way into their field of vision.
Which is the classic symptom of learned helplessness. He has accepted his role as a ghost in the real world.
I want to challenge the causality here, though, because I think it's an interesting debate. Let's create some friction around this concept.
Okay, let's hear it.
Is it a chicken or egg scenario? Like, did Kailen's profound systemic social isolation make him a weak, vulnerable target that the debt eventually managed to latch onto? Or did the looming metaphysical presence of this debt actually cause the isolation?
That's a great question.
Right. Like, is the entity projecting a subconscious, do not perceive this man aura around him to isolate him from the herd, effectively, tenderizing him for the eventual collection?
That is the crucial debate. Based on the language in the text that he felt placed just out of alignment, I lean heavily toward the latter.
So the debt caused the isolation?
Yes. The debt claimed him before he was born. On a subconscious metaphysical level, the rest of the human herd senses that he is already spoken for.
Oh, wow, like animals avoiding a marked prey?
Exactly. They smell the spiritual predator circling him, and their instinct is to give him a wide berth. They don't know why they are ignoring him. Their brains just categorize him as off-limits to avoid drawing the attention of whatever is claiming him.
So he doesn't even belong to the human ecosystem anymore?
He is property of the void. And this deeply systemic isolation is the foundational bedrock for the transition into LeBlanc's next narrative, the nothing. Kailen has essentially been living inside a localized version of the nothing his entire adult life.
That makes so much sense when you connect it to the new book. And I think for you listening, we can all relate to a tiny fraction of that feeling.
Oh, for sure.
Think about the modern phenomenon of digital ghosting. You put a piece of yourself out into the ether, a message, a post, an email, and it is met with absolute silence.
It's a terrible feeling.
You check your phone, wondering if the network is down because the silence feels so unnatural. You feel like an invisible algorithm.
It really messes with your head.
Now take that hollow, sinking feeling in your stomach and apply it to your physical flesh and blood body every single day for 35 years. You speak, and the air just absorbs the sound.
It creates a state of extreme psychological fragility. He is desperate to be seen, which makes what happens next so incredibly dangerous.
Right, because we are moving from chronic psychological dread to an acute physical fracturing of reality. And it starts during the most mundane activity imaginable, a walk down a city street.
Let's break down the sensory environment of this walk. The atmosphere is oppressive right from the start.
Yeah, the sky is described as flat and colorless, pressing low over the city.
and the city itself is in a tired silence. But the pivotal moment hinges on a total paradox. The realization hits him. Nothing was wrong. That was what made it noticeable.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because how do you extract terror from the complete absence of a threat?
It's a very difficult thing to write effectively.
But LeBlanc does it. Kailen is standing at a crosswalk. He is watching the traffic signal cycle. Red, yellow, green. It is the pinnacle of mechanical, engineered predictability.
It's supposed to be comforting.
Exactly. He focuses on it, hoping the cold logic of the traffic light will ground him. But instead, the text notes a subtle pressure, like the world had shifted slightly out of place, leaving everything just a fraction misaligned.
This raises an important question about predictive coding in the human brain.
Predictive coding.
Yeah, our brains do not actually process reality in real time. There is simply too much sensory data coming in at any given millisecond.
So our brains take shortcuts.
Exactly. Instead, the brain is essentially a prediction machine. It hallucinates a model of the world based on past experience, and it only updates that model if the incoming sensory data contradicts the prediction.
Okay, I follow.
So when you walk down a familiar street, you aren't really seeing the street. You are seeing your brain's memory of the street, lightly painted over with real-time updates.
So what happens when the predictive model fails, but the sensory data still looks perfectly normal?
That is the exact definition of the psychological uncanny. It's a systemic cognitive dissonance.
The uncanny valley effect.
Right. The external data, the traffic light, the cars, the pedestrians, all perfectly match the visual requirements of normal reality. But Kailen's internal subconscious threat detection systems are firing wildly.
They're telling him something is fundamentally wrong.
Yes, his instincts are screaming that the foundational physics of this space have been compromised. The environment looks like a street, but it feels like a hunting ground.
So which sense does he trust? His visual cortex or his ancient reptilian survival instincts?
It's a paralyzing conflict.
Let's map this onto the uncanny valley, but expand it for you listening. Usually we talk about the uncanny valley regarding human faces, like a robot or a CGI character that looks, say, 99% human.
But that missing 1% is horrifying.
Right. That missing 1% triggers a deep revulsion. Our brain screams, that is a corpse pretending to be alive. Now, take that exact revulsion, but apply it to the surrounding architecture.
The buildings, the streets.
Apply it to the air pressure. Imagine walking down a perfectly familiar staircase in the dark. Your brain has calculated the number of steps. You step down for the final stair, expecting the solid floor, but your foot just goes through empty air.
Oh, that stomach drop feeling.
Yes. For a split second, gravity feels wrong. The universe feels broken, that heart-stopping jolt in your chest. That is what Kailen is experiencing, but instead of lasting a split second, it is sustained. The entire city block has fallen into the uncanny valley.
And yet he attempts to override his instincts with logic, which is so human. He looks around, he sees a woman checking her phone, he sees a man adjusting his coat.
He's looking for proof that things are fine.
Exactly. He uses the mundane actions of others as an anchor, and he forces himself to cross the street, telling himself it was nothing.
But we, as the audience, know it's not nothing. The tether is pulling taut.
The trap is springing.
And as Kailen leaves the open public space of the city street and enters the enclosed private space of his apartment building's lobby, the breakdown of reality becomes measurable. We transition from a subjective feeling of unease to an objective violation of physics.
He opens the lobby door with a soft mechanical click, and immediately the acoustic properties of the world change.
It's instantly unnatural.
The chaotic noise of the city street is instantly severed, replaced by the sterile, steady hum of overhead lights. The lobby is totally abandoned. The front desk is empty, a chair pushed back as if the concierge simply ceased to exist mid-shift.
And then we get the mirror moment, the moment we talked about in the intro. The moment that shatters the contract with reality.
It's such a brilliant scene.
He approaches the glass doors of the interior vestibule. He catches his reflection in the glass, and he realizes his reflection is lagging.
The text specifically notes that the reflection reacted instead of mirrored.
Let's stop and interrogate the actual physics required to make that happen, because it's mind-bending.
For a reflection to lag, the speed of light, which is an absolute constant in our universe, roughly 186,000 miles per second, has to be localized and drastically reduced.
Right.
If he waves his hand, and the reflection waves a half-second later over a distance of just a few feet, the speed of light in that lobby has been throttled down to a few feet per second.
And if you alter the speed of light that drastically, the thermodynamic consequences should be catastrophic, shouldn't they?
Oh, absolutely. The localized gravity required to bend time and light to that degree would instantly crush a human body.
But Kailen isn't crushed. He's just standing there watching his own image fail to keep up with him.
Which proves he has crossed a threshold into a manufactured pocket dimension. He is in a space that is mimicking reality, but the entity running the simulation doesn't quite understand the code.
It's dropping frames.
Yes, and it's not just light. When Kailen takes a step, the sound of his shoe hitting the tile echoes back to him out of sync. The speed of sound has also been compromised.
The phrase reacted instead of mirrored is just deeply sinister to me. It implies agency.
It definitely implies something is watching.
Think about a high-latency video call. You wave at the camera, and a second later, the person on the screen waves back. But in this case, the person on the screen is you, standing in the same room.
Which is horrifying.
It suggests that the image in the glass isn't a reflection of photons at all. It's an entity, or a system, observing him, and clumsily attempting to mimic his movements to maintain the illusion of a mirror. It is pantomiming his existence.
It completely destabilizes the concept of the self. If your reflection is an independent actor, then who are you? And how does Kailen process this immense violation of natural law? He whispers out loud, "You're just tired."
I have to admit, I struggle with this reaction a bit. Like, if I see my reflection lag, I am throwing a chair through that glass and running into oncoming traffic.
Yeah, flight response all the way.
I am not calmly proceeding to the elevators. Why does he keep walking forward? Is he incredibly brave, incredibly foolish, or is his free will just already gone?
It is absolute compulsion combined with profound denial. Denial is one of the most powerful survival mechanisms the human brain possesses.
That's true. We lie to ourselves all the time.
When faced with an impossible trauma, the brain will force-fit the event into a mundane category to prevent a complete psychological collapse. I'm not experiencing a localized breakdown of space-time. My blood sugar is low. I'm tired.
He uses the sound of his own voice to desperately tether himself to normalcy.
But the compulsion is undeniable. The debt is reeling him in.
So he moves deeper into the building, leaving the lobby and entering the hallway. And this corridor is an absolute masterclass in escalating tension.
The atmosphere gets so thick here.
The overhead lights are buzzing, but they are flickering just at the edge of his peripheral vision. And the shadows aren't behaving like the absence of light. They are pooling in the corners, stretching unnaturally, as if they have mass.
Let's unpack the architectural psychology of the hallway. In both literature and architecture, a corridor is a liminal space.
A liminal space.
Yes, it comes from the Latin word limen, meaning threshold. A liminal space is a place of transition. You do not dwell in a hallway. It is a conduit between a point of origin and a destination.
You're just passing through.
Right. And from an evolutionary standpoint, the brain struggles to categorize liminal spaces because they are neither a secure shelter nor a known foraging ground.
So it's an inherently anxious space.
Exactly. When reality begins to degrade inside a liminal space, it triggers a deep, primal panic because you're trapped in the in-between.
And it's here that human systems of logic completely fail him. He looks at the brass numbers on the apartment doors, trying to orient himself. But the numbers resist focus.
That detail is so unnerving.
When he stares at them, they slip out of clarity, as if the concept of mathematics and identification is being actively erased from the environment.
And beneath the hum of the lights, he hears a new sound.
Right, the dragging.
A faint, irregular dragging noise, keeping pace with them, just behind the walls or just out of sight.
The dragging sound is the auditory manifestation of the inevitability, isn't it?
It really is. It isn't rushing. It doesn't need to run to catch him. It is simply keeping pace because the destination is already secured.
Which brings us to the climax of the hallway. He reaches the end of the corridor, and there, sitting where a blank wall should be, is a door.
A door that wasn't there yesterday.
A plain, unmarked, smooth door that absolutely did not exist before. He stops a few feet from it. The air pressure in the hallway drops, and the text reveals this crushing realization. It says the door felt deliberate, placed, like it existed for him.
We really have to contrast this moment with the entire first half of his life.
The invisibility we talked about earlier?
Yes. For 35 years, Kailen has been functionally invisible. The world refused to acknowledge him. He was a piece of background scenery.
Ignored by literally everyone.
Now, in this dark, distorted hallway, he is suddenly the absolute, undeniable center of the universe. A physical doorway has been willed into existence by an ancient force, solely for him to walk through.
There is a terrifying paradox here, though. Every biological instinct he has is screaming at him to turn around and run. The dragging sound is there, the lights are failing, but he steps toward the door.
It defies logic.
But I think on some deeply damaged psychological level, the sheer novelty of being wanted is intoxicating to him.
Being wanted even by a monster.
Right. After 3 decades of total neglect, to have a force, even a monstrous, malevolent force, look at you and say, I see you and I have built this for you, might be a stronger pull than the instinct to survive.
That makes total sense.
Malevolent attention is still attention. To be the prey is to finally have a defined role in the world.
That is a brutally tragic analysis, but it aligns perfectly with the 20 years of character development the LeBlanc brothers built into Kailen.
It really pays off here.
His systemic isolation was the lock, and this hyper-focused, targeted attention is the key turning in that lock. Before he even reaches out, the lights dim, the handle turns on its own, and the door clicks open.
And he crosses the threshold. We move from the distorted physical world of the hallway into an environment of pure conscious darkness.
The transition is so sudden.
The scene transition is violent because there is no transition. He steps through, and the hallway behind him simply ceases to exist. There is no sound of a door closing. 1 second, he's in an apartment building. The next, he is suspended in a void.
But the text is very specific about the nature of this void. It is not an empty shadow.
No, it has substance.
It is described as something deeper. It is dense. It is present. He is now literally standing inside the entity. He is inside the capitalized something from the prologue.
And the confrontation that follows is entirely telepathic. The dialogue happens directly inside Kailen's mind.
Which just adds to the claustrophobia.
The words are clear and measured. The darkness speaks first, and it says, you shouldn't be here.
Which immediately destabilizes Kailen's understanding of the event. He thought he was walking into a trap set for him.
Kailen desperately tries to reassert some level of agency. He replies, I didn't come here. He is trying to claim that he didn't choose this, that he is a victim of circumstance.
But the entity's response just shatters him entirely. It replies with 3 words. You were brought.
Man.
You were brought. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this short exchange is a massive philosophical debate on free will versus determinism.
Right, Kailen is arguing for free will. I didn't choose to open the door. I didn't want this.
And the entity is confirming absolute determinism. Your choices never mattered. Your isolation, your daily routine, the exact moment you walked into that lobby, it was all engineered.
It was all mapped out.
You are a piece on a chessboard that has been sliding toward this exact square for generations. You were brought. Strips him of his autonomy completely.
He has been on a conveyor belt since conception. Kailen asks the darkness, why? And the entity answers, you carry it.
And when Kailen demands to know what he carries, the darkness replies, the debt.
And the text notes that the word settles into him with a weight older than the moment itself.
This is the architectural payoff of the entire narrative so far. The ancient bargain made by his desperate ancestor has finally matured.
The bill is due.
The metaphysical tether that has been dragging behind his bloodline for centuries has snapped taut, and Kailen is the anchor.
So what does this all mean for the actual mechanics of the confrontation? Because it isn't a fight. There are no supernatural blasts of energy, no screaming, no running around.
It is incredibly clinical.
Kailen tries to deny it. He says, that doesn't mean anything. The entity replies calmly, it does. It always has. Kailen asks, what happens now? And the darkness delivers a single, absolute command. You fulfill.
And immediately, the physical manifestation of the debt activates. Kailen experiences a sharp, undeniable pressure pulling inward in his chest.
Pulling inward, not crushing.
Notice the specific language exactly. It is not an external force crushing him. It is an internal force pulling inward. The debt isn't attacking his body. It is latching on to his soul.
It's a cosmic foreclosure. That's the only way I can process it for you listening. It's an administrative transaction.
I love that comparison.
The entity isn't an enemy in a battle. It's a bank official finalizing the seizure of an asset. The contract was signed generations ago. The interest has compounded. The grace period is over. And now the property is being reclaimed. And the property is Kailen.
The sheer helplessness of the administrative process is what makes it so terrifying. He staggers under the internal pressure. He is totally paralyzed by the weight of a ledger he never even saw.
But the chapter doesn't end with him being consumed by the dark. It ends with a violent snap back to reality, which honestly might actually be worse.
The climax hinges on this exact release. The pressure suddenly drops. The void vanishes. and Kailen stumbles forward, his hands hitting a solid wall as the physical world violently reforms around him.
He is back in the hallway. But the horror of this return is the perfection of the mundane.
Everything looks fine again.
The overhead lights are humming a steady, normal tune. The brass numbers on the doors are perfectly in focus. The shadows are behaving exactly as light dictates. The environment is perfectly, mockingly normal.
We really have to analyze why this snapback is such a structurally brilliant way to end a first chapter and launch a massive saga like this.
Yeah, why not just trap him in the void?
If Kailen were trapped in the void, the story is essentially over. He's a prisoner. The true psychological horror is that he has to re-enter his mundane life, go back to his apartment, make a cup of coffee, and go to work, knowing that the physical laws of the universe are a flimsy illusion.
He has to pretend everything is normal.
He knows that just beneath the paint of reality, there is a cosmic abyss that owns him.
He can never trust his own senses again. If a light flickers, is it a faulty bulb, or is the frame rate of the universe dropping? If his reflection looks weird for a second, is it a trick of the light, or is the mimic lagging again? The trauma of the subjective experience is that he has no proof. He can't show this to anyone.
And look at the paradigm shift in his identity. He entered that building as a ghost, a man utterly untethered from the world, ignored by humanity.
And now?
He leaves that hallway, intimately tethered to something ancient and vast. The irony is sickening. He wanted to leave an impression on the world. He wanted to be noticed. Well, the darkest corner of the universe noticed him, and it handed him the bill.
He ends the chapter standing in that brightly lit, quiet hallway, breathing heavily, hand pressed hard against his chest where the pressure bloomed. He is left with the absolute certainty that the transaction isn't over.
It has only just been initialized.
This is the exact moment that begins the downward spiral, charting his path directly into the events of the nothing. He is now a marked man walking through a world of oblivious people.
LeBlanc takes the classic horror trope of the monster in the closet and elevates it to a structural critique of reality itself. The monster isn't hiding, it owns the house, and it's just waiting to collect the rent.
It is an incredible journey to pack into an opening sequence, to synthesize the massive scope of what we've explored today. We started with the biology and psychology of generational trauma, how a desperate decision made centuries ago can write a physical and metaphysical debt into the DNA of a bloodline.
We dissected the crushing evolutionary toll of profound social isolation and how being invisible to humanity might just be the exact mechanism that prepares you for the void.
We examine the breakdown of predictive coding, the terror of environmental uncanny valley, and the literal localized collapse of the speed of light and sound.
And it all culminates in that liminal space, that hallway, where the illusion of free will is stripped away by an administrative transaction of the soul, a cosmic foreclosure.
It is a narrative that forces the reader to confront their own unseen tethers.
It really does. It makes you question what you're carrying.
And that is exactly where we want to leave this today. We want to turn this back to you, the listener, sitting with us at the table, because while you might not have a supernatural entity manipulating the acoustic properties of your apartment building, we are all navigating a world that occasionally feels slightly out of alignment.
We're all carrying inheritances we didn't ask for.
Exactly. Psychological inheritances, cultural debts, the unresolved traumas of our own families.
We're all paying interest on history.
We really are. So as we close the book on this particular deep dive, we want to leave you with a final, lingering thought. Think about the invisible baggage you are carrying right now. The expectations, the unspoken family rules, the histories of those who came before you.
It's heavy stuff.
If you were walking down a quiet, perfectly normal hallway tomorrow afternoon and you blinked, and suddenly a smooth, unmarked door appeared at the end of the corridor, would you have the courage to put your head down and walk past it?
Or would the curiosity be too much?
Or, after a lifetime of carrying a weight you couldn't name, would you reach out, turn the handle, and step inside to finally see what has been waiting to collect?
If you've made it this far, you probably didn't take the easy road.